Okay, let's perform the operation in complex numbers of the square root of -2 times the square root of -50. Now, the common mistake that's made here is that people see this problem and they say, well, we can do this multiplication under a single radical because the indices are the same in each of these radicals. In other words, the invisible number 2 in the hook matches. So since we're multiplying, we can write this as a single square root of -2 times -50, and then the negative signs would disappear. And that is not the way to do this problem. You do not get rid of the negative sign that way. Your first step, always when you have the square root of a negative number, before you do anything else, you factor out the I. Factor out the I. In other words, you're going to get rid of the negative sign on each of these individually before you do the multiplication. So, proceeding this way, we have the square root of -2 is the same as the square root of 2 times I. And that's multiplied by the square root of 50. -50 is the square root of 25 times the square root of 2 times I. So I did a little more here in the second factor. I busted up the 50. But the main thing that I wanted to point out is I factored out the square root of -1 out of each of them and rewrote it as I. Now let's continue with the multiplication. We have a square root of 2 appearing twice in this multiplication. So we have, let's see, well, just simplifying here, we have the square root of 2 times I times 5 times the square root of 2 times I. I just simplified the square root of 25 there. Okay, so we have, let's see, we have the square root of 2 appearing twice, so that's squared, times the 5 times I squared, because we have two factors of I. Now, the square root of 2 squared gives me a 2. So we have 2 times the 5, and then replace I squared with -1. Together we get -10 for our answer. Okay, so you can check that out a second time if you need to freeze the video and rewind it. If not, let's go ahead and have you do a U-try problem. Multiply the square root of 1/3 times the square root of -27. Freeze the video, give it a try, come back and check when you're finished. Okay, we're back. Now, the first thing I did was, because I had the square root of a negative number, I simplified it. I know that 27 is the same as 9 times 3, so I broke it down to the square root of 9 times the square root of 3 times the square root of -1. That's the important thing. You're pulling out the I. Okay, so just bring down the tall square root of 1/3 times our factored square root of 9 times square root of 3, and most importantly, square root of -1. Replace that square root of -1 with an I in the next step. Okay, next we have, bring the square root of 9 in the front times tall square root of 1/3 times 3 under one radical sign times the I, which replaces the square root of -1. Now, under the radical sign, you see I did the multiplication of two numbers. I can now cancel the 3 in the numerator under the radical sign with the 3 in the denominator, and that leaves the square root of 1. So I have the square root of 9 is 3 times the square root of 1 times the I at the end gives me 3I, because the square root of 1 is just 1.